Welcome to Scaling with Heart, the show where growth meets humanity. I'm your host, Nikki Duncan, and I sit down with operators, founders, and change makers who are building smarter systems, stronger teams, and more intentional lives. Whether you're growing a business, leading a team, or leveling up your own work, this is your space to learn how strategy, creativity, and heart come together to scale what matters. We'll explore the tools, mindset shifts, and leadership habits that turn complexity into clarity and ambition into aligned action. Let's get into it. Today's guest is Bob Sager, innovation strategist and founder of Spearpoint Solutions. Most so called brainstormings waste time, but not when Bob's in the room. Bob is the founder of Spearpoint Solutions and the author of 101 freaking brilliant business ideas. He brings structure, science, and strategy to creativity through his unique approach, scientific creative thinking. It's a method that replaces guesswork with repeatable frameworks to solve complex business problems, spark innovation, and create clear market differentiation. So, the basis of your creative thinking strategies, Bob, hit it.
So, listen, there are quite a number of different scientific creative thinking methods that we teach. And let me start off by saying that why do you need those, right? Like some people think, well, I'm just creative, but a lot of people think, well, I'm not creative, right? And the reason and the probably the main benefit to using those methods is that people are creatures of habit. We're biologically wired that way. Why? Because conscious thought burns calories. And so it, as soon as it is possible to move the how to do something, how to do a task, how to tie your shoes, how to button your shirt, whatever it might be, as soon as you can move that to a subconscious process, we do. We're wired to do it that way. I mean, imagine how chaotic life would be if we had to consciously concentrate and think about how to do everything that we do during the course of a day, right? But you don't. I mean, I ask people, when's the last time you thought about how to tie your shoes? You don't think about it, you just do it. And another good example of that is if you drive a particular route all the time, like let's say you work in a particular office, you can leave home, drive to the office, put the car in park, and look up and go, I don't even remember driving here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's because you're no longer consciously thinking about driving that route because you drive it so much, it's it's become second nature, right? And so your mind is consciously wandering off in other directions. It's the same way I used to tell people I get a lot of great ideas when I'm shaving or showering. It's because it's something that you do all the time and you just do it the same way every time so you don't have to think about it. And so that biological imperative of moving those tasks to a subconscious level so we don't have to consciously think about them, that serves us well most of the time. The problem comes in is when we're all of a sudden the solutions that we had come up with before aren't working as well as they used to, or not at all, right? And so we've got to come up with new ideas. And so we set about thinking about them and we think really, really hard. But that process, conscious process of thinking about solving a problem that we have already solved in a way that didn't kill us, right? Our subconscious takes over and overrules it. And so we're thinking really hard, but because we're kind of thinking about it in the same ways, it's like driving 100 miles an hour on a circular freeway. we we put a lot of effort into it, but we end up in exactly the same place. So we can't come up with meaningful changes that are really going to make a difference. And so the reason to use scientific creative thinking methods is they create an off-ramp off of that circular freeway. And so we can now go over here and explore new territory. What happens is we short circuit that autopilot thinking. And so, when we're doing corporate training seminars, I hate to call them seminars, we call them fun shops, right? Because they're not workshops, they're fun shops. And the reason we call them that is because we gamified the process. Uh, but before we dive into teaching people anything and playing the games that we play to utilize these thinking methods, we'll ask by a show of hands, how many of you consider yourself to be creative? And it's consistently 20% or fewer of the hands that go up. And I think there's a couple of different reasons for that. I think people are we're all born creative thinkers. One of the creative thinking book authors named Michael Michalko, I watched him in an interview one time, and he said people people go into school as a question mark and they come out as a period, right? So we're all born creative thinkers. I mean, look at kids. Look at preschool kids. All they do all day long is learn new things and use their imagination and contemplate new possibilities. I mean, it's a natural way to be as human beings. But then we go into the structure of formalized school, and that's either trained out of us in a lot of cases. There's one answer. And why is there one answer? Because that's what's on the test, right?
Mhm.
You don't even think about coming up with a new answer, right? And so the problem, with being a child, especially a preschooler, is you've got all this imaginative, creative ability, but you don't know much yet, and you don't have much life experience, so you don't have a lot to apply it to. But as an adult, after, 18 or 22 or, in our 20s when we get out of formal school, we know a lot of things and we've got a little bit of life experience, but that natural ability that we had as a child to be creative, it's not gone, but it's atrophied. And
Mhm.
so it really has to be re-stimulated in order for it to be useful for us. And so,
It's like we get buried in the
yes,
don't do it that way, don't do it this way. It's my daughter is an elementary teacher, a music teacher, and her first year in this new school, she was trying to get the kids to figure out how to do basic things. And so she wrote this, she didn't write, she rewrote the lyrics to an old song. And as the kids would come in the room, she would march with them. This is the way we walk in the room, walk in the room, walk in the room. This is the way we walk in the room early in the morning. This is the way we sit on our dots, sit on our dots. And she did this. And on one level, it's a creative way to get the kids to do what they need to do and live within a structure. But on the other hand, we can lean so far into that structure that we squash their natural, like you're saying, God-given ability and
right,
talent to think outside the box.
right,
And I
right.
I watch that with my youngest daughter she's ADHD, so her brain is already wired differently. And that girl is so creative. And she comes up with stuff all the time. I'm like, where did that even come from? She says, I don't know. It just came to me. She is so creative. And as a parent, trying to get her to toe the line and obey the rules, it was so hard to balance that toe the line and obey the rules, but be creative and have fun doing it. And it was so critically important for my youngest that I figured out that balancing act. It's really hard.
Yeah. Well, it was something that I drilled into the heads of all five. I have four children, they're all adults now, but something I drilled into their head when they were growing up was question everything.
Mhm.
And it's a good mantra to not just accept things that, especially in today's world where creativity is no longer it's no longer a nice to have,
Right.
or it's no longer something that you can't afford to not have. Especially in the age of AI where so many routine tasks can be taken over and done, by bots that were previously done by human beings. Well, how are human beings going to remain relevant? Well,
Right.
that's one of the ways is that you have that unique human creative imagination, and to tap into that. In fact, what I've discovered as more and more I've experimented with artificial intelligence is that you have to use it really effectively, you've got to have some creative ways to instruct it,
Yes.
right? Like you've got to have the basis. Like we were creating a new landing page for this strategies by subscription offering that we're launching next week, and so I thought to myself, I wonder if AI could do the coding for that page. And so I didn't know if it could or not. But the one that the AI platform that I use most is Gemini, and so Gemini has one of their part of their suite is called Canvas, and
Hmm.
I went into Canvas and I said, "This is what I want the page to be," and I gave it a list of instructions, and within like probably a minute, maybe a minute and a half. It had the entire, I don't know how many lines of code that was, but it was a bunch. And it wasn't perfect. I had to re-instruct it a little bit, like change this, do this. But I mean, do you know how long it would have taken a human being to write all those lines of code?
I do because I've done it.
So,
I've done it. I was never more grateful than when WordPress came out and I no longer had to code everything. And now I have forgotten more about coding than I ever knew about coding. But I've coded websites, so I know
yeah. So
it's
And
hard.
so,
Yeah.
even a high level but relatively routine skill like that, that's in a lot of cases not going to be done by people anymore.
Right.
And so you really have to be able to utilize your uniquely human skills. You have to develop them, right? And
Right.
then you have to be able to utilize them if you're going to remain relevant, marketable, viable in the modern economy. And frankly, the companies that are really going to stand out in an increasingly crowded marketplace, those are the companies that employ that sort of thing.
Right.
Because when everybody has access to AI, it's going to be harder and harder and harder to stand out.
Yeah.
Um, so so uh, I mentioned before that we teach a number of different creative thinking methods. And do you mind if I talk about one of the basic ones?
No, go for it. I'm curious if it's I've used a couple of yours, so I'm curious if you're going to talk about one or two of them that I've used.
You know, this is the one that there were some not really creative thinking methods, but there was sort of some systems that I had learned to help my brain be a little bit more creative long ago. But when I really started getting into learning about creative thinking methods, one of the first ones that I used was called combinatory play. And I learned after a little bit of study on that it had been both Einstein and Da Vinci's favorite creative thinking method. And I'll give you an idea, and for the viewers, I'll give you guys an idea how this works. But let me back up a step. People's minds don't work in words, they work in pictures,
Hmm.
right? And so if I say to you the word dog, you're not picturing the word dog, the letters D, O, and G, right?
Right.
You're picturing a dog,
Right.
and probably a dog you're familiar with. Maybe if you own a dog, that's the dog you're probably picturing, right?
Yep.
If I say to you the word kitchen, you're probably picturing your kitchen, right?
Right.
Unless you work in a restaurant, then you might be picturing the kitchen at the restaurant. But but if I say to you, combine those two words, dog and kitchen, and I give you a direction to think, and I say, come up with an idea for a product, service, or business combining dog and kitchen, or reversing the order, kitchen dog, all of a sudden your mind starts going places that it wouldn't have gone,
Right.
right? You
Mine
start
just
coming up
mine
with
just
all
built a
these different
gate to go
possibilities.
from the kitchen walls to keep the dogs out of my kitchen. See, I just built a product, Bob. I just built a gate in my kitchen.
And but let me tell you the interesting thing that we have found is that because everybody has their own unique set of knowledge and life experience, what one person sees in a combination of word or words
Mhm.
versus what another person sees, it probably and usually is completely different.
Right.
Right. So when we use that exercise, by the way, the creative thinking game that I invented that we used in teaching all these methods, but we use it to teach this basic one first to get people's creative juices flowing. It's called What's the Big Idea?
Mhm.
And in fact, hang on one second. Let me reach over here on my desk. That's it.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see that logo or not, but
Yep,
the
I can.
interesting thing about that logo is, you know, some of those, one, all the letters are different, and some of them aren't even letters,
Right.
right? Some of them are just symbols. And so, let me put that back down. So, and the way the game works, and on the basic version, we use that combinatory play method, and we have three teams. We have an entrepreneur team, we have a competitor team, and we have a customer team. And so the entrepreneur team and the competitor team each get a set of 10 words, and they're picking any two of those 10 words and combining them together and coming up with an idea for a new product, service, or business.
Mhm.
The competitor team gets a separate set of 10 words. They're doing the same thing concurrently, and they get 3 minutes to work together to come up with an idea for product, service, or business. And then each of those teams then takes about a minute. We're not too rigid. We're pretty rigid on the 3 minutes, but we're not too rigid but we give them a guideline of a minute to present to the customer team what it is, how it works, and what the benefits are. And then the customer team gets to choose, hey, do I like this idea better? Do I like this idea better? And and people have so much fun with that. And by the way, we move around the room, and every group plays every role, over the course of a training module. And people have so much fun with that. And two things all the time with every event. One, people are laughing their heads off
Mhm.
because new ideas are a little off center,
Yep.
right? But the other thing that you hear all the time is that's a really good idea. And we've had instances where we're doing this just to kick things off in corporate training. And the main goal in corporate training is get people thinking more creatively, but right there in the training session, come up with ideas for improving their business
Sure.
and their function within a company. And we do. But in that first round, when we're playing, coming up with product, service, or business ideas, we've had people that outside of their company, they're actually working and putting those together. It's like,
Hmm.
hey, I didn't even know that this was going to be part of this training. Because let's face it, most corporate training, I mean, I don't mean to be overly critical, but most corporate training is not that useful,
Right.
right? And so people are used to being bored.
Hmm.
Um, I remember talking to a gentleman who he trained people on more, thinking at a higher level in terms of achievement and those sorts of things. And it just went over people's heads. But, it was something that I guess he sold the company on this training, which is good for him, right? But I remember asking him, I said, are the people that are in your training workshops, are they there voluntarily or are they kind of drafted, right? He's like, yeah,
Voluntold.
the company insists on them being there, right? And I said, correct me if I'm wrong, but I said, I bet you get a lot of people looking at their phones, rolling their eyes, writing notes, sending emails, right? Even though you tell them to pay attention. And I said, it's just, the way we do it, not that we're perfect, but, it's very interactive. And it's human nature. When you're having fun with something, you want to do more of it,
Right. Right.
right? When something feels like fun, and we make it feel like fun, and it's like I said, it's very engaging, very interactive, lots of laughter. And when something feels like work, people want to do less of it. And so people are quite shocked actually, when they finish the training. In fact, I had one guy come up and tell me this was just after we did like a short, like a 2 hour training event. And so we mostly used that combinatory play method. Um, and he came up to me and he said, he said, what the great thing about this game is, Bob. I said, what? He said, when you win, you win. And when you lose, you still win, right? Because even if your idea isn't chosen, by the customers, you still came up with a new idea that you might be able to do something with.
Right. And you walked away with a tool, a method that you can use in the future with your
Yes.
next team and your next team and your next team and even your family and I mean almost anything, almost anywhere. Um,
We,
yeah.
You, I had mentioned before we started recording today that I was really involved but my wife was really the one that was super involved with Girl Scouts and scouting, and they used to use that game at their leadership council events to come up with ideas on how they could engage the girls better. So, everybody can use this training or this game that I invented, whether it's for a corporate purpose, whether it's for a nonprofit, or like you said, just kind of, we haven't in recent years, but we used to just play this game as a family, just as a
Mhm.
fun family night, sitting around having snacks and drinks.
Right.
And so it's something that people want to do, not something that people have to do.
Yeah. Well, and in a very, very downplayed, obviously unofficial because they don't know about it probably, an informal way. Friday evening, I was at a kickoff event for a fundraising campaign that I am doing. And I kept overhearing all of these people who are also doing their own fundraising campaigns at the same time, talking about, well, what are you doing? And what am I doing? And all of a sudden, you start seeing people combining this person's idea with this person's idea and their idea to, and they're combining all of these different ideas to come up with their own idea. They're like, oh, this one over here is I don't know. This one over here is putting signs. So I saw a TikTok earlier. One of the ladies on the campaign, she took her fundraising sign and somebody missed her event. So she went and put it in the yard. And she sent her friend a message, Bob, I'm sorry you missed this fundraising event. So you've been attacked. And if you want my sign out of your yard, just scan the QR code and make a donation to my campaign, and I'll come get the sign out. And so then I commented on it. I'm like, that's really funny. When my daughter was in school, her band did that with flamingos for a fundraiser. And we had
Yeah,
a whole bunch of annoying pink flamingos. And we would go out and just stick all these flamingos in your yard with a sign. If you want these removed, make a donation to the band. And then once you made your donation, we would come remove the
right.
flamingos. and the sign with the flamingo said, "You've been flocked." And so somebody else in the group says, "Oh my gosh, wouldn't it be kind of funny, kind of, whatever, because it's a heart health related campaign." She says, "I see people getting heart attacked all the time now." I'm like, now I see all these red yard signs being ordered on Amazon, and they're going to stick all these red hearts in people's yards with their sign. "You've been heart attacked. If you want it gone, make a
That's
donation."
funny.
So they're just combining one thing with another, with another, with another. And it's kind of what you're talking about, it's you start out with your own idea, and then when you bring other people into the conversation, it just gets more and more fun. It's not that everybody, because nobody had come up with that idea yet of
Yeah,
of of the heart attack thing or any of the combination thereof. And it took one person doing that one thing to remind me, "Oh my gosh, they did these flamingos." And then somebody took the flamingo idea and twisted it and ran with it. And
right,
and
right.
that's where all kinds of creative things come from. I had a conversation with my husband recently using one of your creative thinking methods. I came up with what he does, which is a service-based business, coming up with how we could do that as a subscription-based
Mm,
service. And putting, yes, you've got to put the strict guidelines in place. There's people are going to abuse it. But putting all of that in there, and he says, honestly, he goes, and he can't yet. He's starting to. He says, "I'm not sure how to wrap my head around that." And it's like you were talking earlier, we get so used to thinking in one way, we get stuck in that cycle. And that's where he's at. He's like, I can't really picture how this is going to work because I don't think anybody else is doing it.
right.
Well, because no one else is doing it is why it would work.
Yes. And
But
really,
it's hard to get out of that. I'm in my lane. I'm doing my thing. You made a comment on a post earlier about quit whacking moles. Quit playing whack-a-mole
right.
all day. He's just so busy playing whack-a-mole, right? And that's all he can see are that those moles just keep popping up. It's like you've got to stop playing whack-a-mole long enough to look at something a little differently.
People get so caught up in this is the way we've always done it
Yeah.
that it's so hard to get out of that mindset. And listen, that's one of the reasons, by the way, that I'll be talking to a business owner or a GM or a director or somebody that's in charge of making decisions and writing checks, and we'll be talking about some of the training um, and they'll tell me that, look, this training is going to help us. We like it. It's going to help us a lot over time, right? It's going to help us become more innovative as an organization. But frankly, we need some strategies we can win with now, right? Like what we need to differentiate ourselves from competitors now. Otherwise, if companies don't do that, they just find themselves competing on price.
Yeah.
Um, or that's the overwhelming competition factor.
Right.
And so, and I say, what's fun about that, right? It's not. Um, but and from a consumer standpoint, you can understand, right? If you are perceived as exactly like or more or less exactly like other options that they have, right? If I'm driving down the road and there's a gas station on this corner and that corner and that corner, and on the marquee, two of them are the same price and the other one's 2 cents less per gallon, I'm probably buying the one that's 2 cents less per gallon,
Right.
right? Because in my mind, 87 octane is 87 octane.
Right.
So, so unless there is a perceptual difference, you're going to default to price, right? That's
Yeah.
just being a smart consumer.
Yeah.
But if somebody is providing something, whether it be a different user experience, that's a lot of times the way to differentiate. But it could be something different than that too, right? It could be a different marketing campaign. There's a lot of different strategies that we develop along those
Yeah.
lines. But to do that, and with your husband, right? If he can put that forth as an option,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
Might not be the only option, but hey, we can certainly do this job for you, right?
Right.
But what are the chances that you're going to have other jobs that you're going to call us for, right?
Right.
It's probably pretty good, right? And something that he might want to do with that that's just occurred to me is that he might want to have people that are a consortium of homeowners that are buying this subscription, right? Now, I think
Hmm.
he ought to limit it to, how many hours you get, how many
Yep.
hours worth of labor you get with it. So there's a lot of different, I mean, we could talk about it a little bit further if you want to, but I think that might be something that he would consider to do as a way to go about it.
Right.
But if you give people love having options, right?
Mhm.
One of the things that I know about consumers that they love having control over their experience. So it's one of the reasons that McDonald's, some people love McDonald's, some people hate McDonald's, but one of the reasons that McDonald's is so successful is you always know what the experience is going to be
Right.
when you go there, right?
Well, and yeah, and you talked about, the gas stations, for example. And we have one, it's a Texas thing. We have one called Bucky's.
Oh, there's Buc-ee's around here.
Oh, where are you
Yeah.
at?
Yeah, there's one probably there's one it's about to open up like 50 miles north of me, and then there's one about
Okay, so they're
probably
spreading. They used to
75
only
or
be they
yeah.
used to only be a Bucky's thing or a Texas thing.
Yeah.
But people will go out of their way to go to Bucky's to get gas. And you can have a racetrack, a QT, and a Bucky's on three opposing corners. And I guarantee you Bucky's is going to be hopping 24/7. And the other two probably not. And people don't care. It is like you're talking about, it's a different experience. And the experience inside of Bucky's is it's just highly elevated. I mean, you walk in the door and you're welcomed immediately, and it's always very, very clean, and everybody's super friendly, and even all the customers are friendly and talking to each other. And, at least when I've been in there, it's just a different experience. It's like you're talking about. It's the experience that differentiates you.
And but part of the problem that business people have is they get so immersed in their day to day, this is how we
Mhm.
do it, right? And like they're so busy and it's time pressure on a lot of different things. And it's like we've just got to get all this stuff done that they can't, it's difficult for them without planned, like we do with our training. We have planned events. Sometimes it's a one-off, like a team building or just a one-day training, but more often, it's like once a quarter. And so this is planned in the calendar so it gets done. But one of the reasons that strategy development works for them, having me do that for them, is that I'm not immersed in that day to day,
Right.
right? Like, I can look at it, I can talk with them, about the different things that they're doing, and come up with ideas and strategies that are going to help them differentiate themselves in the marketplace. And that's because I'm not emotionally connected to it,
Yep.
right? Like it's like, I can see things that they don't see. And plus, I mean, I've been in business and working with I didn't realize when I first started studying this, Nikki, that it has an official name. The official name is behavioral science.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought I used to call it the sociology, psychology, and biology of why people do things, right?
Right.
Or don't do things, right?
Right.
And so when you combine that knowledge with a lot of business experience plus scientific creative thinking methods to see things that are previously invisible, that leads to coming up with strategies that are simple, unique, and effective.
Right.
And so that's, people, they read my newsletter and they see some of the stuff that I come up with for people and they go, it's obvious you know what you're doing, right? So why don't you do
Woohoo!
that for us too, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's and that's listen, that's a lot of fun for me too.
Yeah.
And it's kind of one of those things I'm sure you have stuff like this that it's like when you get used to doing it, it almost doesn't feel like work anymore.
Right.
Like it comes so natural to you that like I'll sit down and like I wrote an article. I may be sharing a little bit of this on I think this is gonna actually go live on Tuesday the 17th. So, but as we're recording it, it's not quite there. And on the 16th, I'm doing a LinkedIn Live event. And I may be sharing some of the ideas I've created for other companies. Like, in fact, I shared this in an article a while back, five different ideas and strategies I had put together for enterprise rent-a-car. And and I remember when I was working on those, I'm like, this would be so cool. Like when I rent cars, that's who I rent from, and that's how I ended up putting these things together for them. And I said, you know, if the next time I was renting a car, if they had this, I mean, I would want to rent from them anyway, but that would talk about heightening the customer
Right.
experience. It's really kind of a big deal. And so both are fun to me because both open up so many new possibilities. The strategy development and the training I'm saying they both open up so many new possibilities for the customer, and it's business is supposed to be fun,
Yeah.
right? And and so the more fun you can make it for yourself, for your employees, and for your customers, that positive emotion of fun is attractive.
Right. Right. What is it they say? Find something you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
Well, I mean, the scientific
You can work,
definition
but you're still going
of
to have
work,
fun doing it.
yeah, the scientific definition of work is expenditure of energy. So, but you can expend a lot of energy
Yeah.
and have fun at the same time, right?
Yes.
So, even though you're working, work does not have to equal drudgery,
Right.
right? So, yeah, so work can be fun, I promise you.
Yeah, it can. So, Bob, you have a new something you're kicking off next week, and it's a new subscription service, right?
It is,
So,
and you
tell us
know,
about that as we wrap up here.
yeah, so it's called Strategies by Subscription. And one of the reasons that we're offering that is the fee to hire me to create an exclusive proprietary strategy, it's not inexpensive. I mean, it's worth it. The ROI is well worth it. But I looked at it and I said, in what ways might we offer something like that to other business owners, but that would make it more affordable, more accessible?
Mhm.
And so what I came up with, this concept, strategies by subscription, people that subscribe to that typically are going to be probably small business owners that maybe can't quite afford the fee that I charge to do an exclusive proprietary strategy for them, but they want some ways that they can win bigger. And so with that strategy subscription, they're going to get three fully fleshed out business strategies every month. So they're going to, over the course of the year, they're going to get 36 strategies. And the cost of investing in that subscription is a fraction of one proprietary exclusive strategy that I would create for them. Now, it's only exclusive to subscribers,
Right.
but when you stop to think about that, oh, and let me back up. And not every strategy is going to fit every business,
Right.
right? So out of the 36, let's say only a fourth of them, that you can apply to your business. Well, that's nine strategies over the course of the year that you're going to be able to apply to your business. And so, uh, and they're not exclusive to you, but when you stop to think about it, I mean, how many millions of businesses are there just in the US, right? And
Mhm.
if 1/10 of 1% of those were subscribers, that's still that's still a pretty exclusive crowd, right?
Right.
That's a pretty small crowd. And so the chances that that very many of your competitors are going to be subscribers is pretty remote, right?
Right.
And we might even get to the point, I'm considering doing this, Nikki. I'm considering that, within a market area, now we'll probably have to charge a little bit more for this, but in a given market area, like we might have one home improvement company and that's it, right?
Right.
In that particular market, and we'll just have a set of strategies for them that only they have access to, like in the greater Cincinnati or the greater Dallas Fort Worth area or greater Atlanta area, whatever it might be. And so we might do that too. But even if that was never the case, there's still, there's going to be a lot of value there. And I don't want to let the cat out of the bag too much on this one because I'm going to talk about a couple of these things on the Monday LinkedIn Live. But we're going to have we're going to build a community where business owners that are subscribers are going to be able to access that community. We're going to have once a quarter AMAs where, people are going to be able to. I love people asking me this all the time. Can I pick your brain? Well, people are going to be able to pick my brain on specific business questions and tap into, 40 years worth of business experience once a quarter
Oh,
uh,
fantastic.
for for a couple of hours. Yeah. And the other thing that we're going to do with that is people are going to be able to submit their request to have me develop a strategy for their industry. And so I'll use some of those as a basis for some of the strategies that I create to put in this subscription. And so in a way, they're getting an exclusive strategy for them,
Hmm.
because it's for their industry, even though it's not totally exclusive to them. It's sort of on their request. So when they log in, they say, "Oh, hey, guess what? I'm in the pet business, or I'm in whatever. I've got home improvement on my brain because of your husband." Uh, or I'm in the hotel industry, right?
Hmm.
And I want a strategy to charge more for my room nights, or how do I book more guests? How do I get? Here's a good one, a strategy I created. In fact, we're going to make this available to people. Strategy I created a few years ago for Choice Hotels, called Chocolate Smiles, and I'll share that with you, Nikki. Uh, but it was a strategy to have guests booking directly through the Choice Hotels site as opposed to through Expedia or Booking.com or something like that. And the reason is I learned as I had done some training work with them that those travel agents like Booking or Expedia or Hotels.com, they charge anywhere from 15 to 25% of the room night rate.
Right.
So wouldn't you want, guests booking more directly? That would immediately, just by that, even without increasing the guest count or your room night count, that would immediately increase your gross revenues
Yeah.
15 to 25%.
Right. 100%.
And so, yeah, so those are that's the goal, of those strategies. It's obviously the goal of a strategy that I develop exclusive for somebody, but with these strategies, by subscription strategies, same thing, right? That's the
Right.
goal, is to have where you can increase your revenues, both top and bottom line revenues. So you're increasing your sales, but you're also increasing the margins on those sales.
Right. Right. Yeah. And it's, like you're talking about using another service and how that cuts into your profits. And if you can I used to have that conversation with the business owners that I supported in my last job. One of the services that they offered was printing services. Some of the stores wanted to do print, some of the stores were afraid of it, some of the stores just completely hated it, whatever the reason being, right? And we rolled out a massive training initiative to get everybody at least the same base level of knowledge. And one of the lessons that I just really tried to drive home in the training was like it, hate it, love it, whatever. Stop saying no. If you say, no, I can't do that, and send them down the road, you just sent 100% of your profit down the road.
Right?
But if you would just, even if you don't do it in-house and control your income, which let's be real, that's where the money is, right? Control it in-house if you can. Control it in-house, and 100% of something is better than 100% of nothing. And if you're not going to do that, then partner up with another business owner and do a share. Bob, listen, I don't have the capacity to do this job. Can you do it for me? And we'll do a 30-70 split or a 60-40 split or whatever. It's my customer, but I'm sending you the work. You're doing it, you're sending it back to me, and I'm still controlling the customer.
Right.
And I'm getting 40% of that, which is still more than 0%.
Right.
And
Yeah.
even that is something that business owners, a lot of times, because they're so stuck in whack-a-mole and day to day, and this is how we've always done it, they can't see a way out.
Yeah.
And so
And
they're
and it
leaving money. They're just,
yeah, and that limited thinking
yeah,
just it's costing them so much money. Not only that, but frankly, you're inconveniencing customers that are already comfortable with you,
mhm,
right? And so why not serve them in ways that they can still do business with
yeah,
you, even if it's just coming through you and not from you.
right. Yeah, it's control as much as you can, but not so much that you stifle yourself. Is kind of what I tried to get our business owners to understand. You need to control that. You need to control that customer. You need to keep that customer coming to you over and over and over again. Quit sending them down the road. And I even saw it where the business owner, I can't do it, but Bob down the street can do that for you. Yeah, they're going to go down the street, they're going to fall in love with Bob, and they're never coming back to Nikki's.
Right. Listen,
Not just for that one assignment either. It's going to be for everything. Quit sending people away.
and
It's like,
and it's something I would add to that is, so many business owners are thinking about, what are the receipts today or this
mhm,
week or what have they been this quarter, as opposed to what's the lifetime value of that customer,
right.
right? Like you say, well, I'm not really making anything on this, or I'm making very little, right? But what is that gonna lead to, right? Because you took care of that customer today,
Hmm.
you might have made, 15 cents, or I'm being a little ridiculous here, but you made next to nothing. It reminds me of back when I was in the financial services industry. I spent 17 years in that career before I started my company to teach creative thinking. And my biggest client came from my smallest client.
Yeah.
I helped a gal who was like 22 years old set up a Roth IRA. And she was so excited, that she was starting early because I guess her family had, said, start early, save. And so about 6 months after I had helped her do that, she was at a family reunion and was telling her grandfather about this guy had been so helpful and answered all my questions and helped me do all the paperwork, and she was putting $50 a month into a Roth IRA. And so I made literally about 30 cents a month
Hmm.
on that one. But her grandfather heard her at the family reunion telling this story and said, "You have that guy's card?"
Yeah.
So she didn't have much money, but he did. and he was not happy with his current investment rep. And I get a call out of the blue. You don't know me, but you know my granddaughter, and you helped her. And he knew the deal. He knew I made nothing
Sure.
really to help her with that. But he had like a $500,000 to invest. So I made a couple more, pennies than 30 cents on that one.
Right.
So, so
It,
you just get,
yeah.
I think if you have a lifetime long-term
Yeah.
view, I think you'll serve your customers in a better way.
Yeah. Well, and and I worked, anybody who knows where my history is online, it's not like it's a secret, but I worked for a long time with the UPS stores. And pretty much anybody who's ever shopped on Amazon and done an Amazon return knows you take your Amazon return to the UPS store location, you walk in, you drop it off, and you're done, right? Customer, you're out of there. I
Right.
don't know what their compensation rate is these days, but once upon a time, let's just say they get $1 per scan of the label, right? We would have franchisees who would be like, Bob is not my customer. Bob is an Amazon customer. He's not my customer, and his dollar doesn't make a difference to me. Okay, but if you treat Bob right, and let's maybe have a conversation with Bob while he's in
Right.
line and you're doing his return. How you doing? Work been busy? Oh, work's crazy. I got this new client. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, what do you do? Let's just have that conversation. You find out Bob owns his own business. And now you find out because Bob has his own business, he needs all of this print stuff. And we had one franchisee that did not approach that Amazon customer coming in as a drain. He instead looked at that customer coming in as, you know what, that's somebody that was driven into my store that I didn't have to pay to advertise to.
Right.
And now here he is. We've had this conversation and he got some massive print jobs out of one customer because he had a conversation. And then those print jobs led to, like you're talking about, those print jobs led to other print jobs, which led to other print jobs. And he became one of our top performing stores, not just in print, but in everything else, because he stopped viewing that incoming $1 as a drain on his time and started looking at it as a potential opportunity. It's
Something that,
mindset. You've got to shift the
yeah,
mindset.
you gotta stop to think, what's my customer acquisition cost?
Yep.
And in that case, your customer acquisition cost, you actually earned $1
Yes.
to potentially acquire a customer, right?
Yeah.
And just be cordial and polite, right? I mean,
Hmm.
that seems like a no-brainer to me.
Me too. Uh, I get it. Yeah, and there are so many things, and I know we could go on for hours and days about all of the ins and outs and things, and it is all about mind shift and that is, I so enjoy your webinars and things that you do online on the creative thinking because it gets my brain thinking differently. And I am a pretty creative person, but even having the structure of a way to think creatively helps because I'm also very structure oriented. Uh,
Right.
my mother-in-law tells me all the time, if it was up to me to invent the wheel, we'd still be walking. Uh, she says, I don't have a creative bone in my body. Uh, but she just doesn't see that she does. And, her creativity is just different. And so your frameworks and your strategies just really help open up the playing field, even for someone like my mother-in-law who is like, I can't create a wheel. That round thing that goes around is really cool. Um, so I really like that. Can you tell us, because I know you've probably got stuff to do and I don't want to keep you all day, can you tell people how to find you online and any passing thoughts, parting
Well,
thoughts?
as far as, reaching me personally, finding me on LinkedIn is probably best. Just linkedin.com/in/Bob Sager, BOBSAGER. If they want to look up information on our website, it's spearpointonline.com. SpearPoint Solutions, but it's spearpointonline.com.
Okay.
And there's several tabs up at there's information on the home screen, obviously, but there's several tabs where, they can go off into SpearPoint world and learn all about the different things that we offer. But I'm super excited about the strategies by subscription. That really, I think, is going to help so many people in such a short amount of time. And you mentioned your mother-in-law not seeing herself as creative. The
Hmm.
majority of people, the great majority of people that when we do training on this type of thinking, they feel the same way. I'm not creative, right? But and because of that, when they working by themselves or working on a team, come up with several outstanding ideas just in a short amount of time, frankly, a lot of them are shocked, right? Like, I didn't know I had this in me, right? Like, man, I've been underselling myself.
Absolutely. Well, and you even have one, and I don't remember what you call it, but you had one where maybe it was the one where you talked about the kind of the combinatory thing where you make a list of 10, you sit in the room and you make a list of 10 things in the room.
Hmm.
And then, and I have to go back and watch the video again to know exactly. And I do, I always have to go back and refer to your videos or my notes, wherever I wrote them. But you make a list of 10 things in the room and then and then you do something like this, and you could do something as a service or as a subscription or
Right.
whatever it is. And even that is something that, I have done. And I did that when I was planning my fundraising campaign. I made a list of just 10 things and then started playing with, as a fundraiser, how can I just taking what you started and just twisting it a different way?
Can I
How can I
can,
use this, you know?
can I let you in on a secret?
Yeah.
Okay, don't tell anybody this,
Okay.
but I'm kidding. It's going to be on video, so a lot of people are going to see it. So the strategies as a subscription,
Uh-huh.
that came out of two different methods that we teach. And of course, the methods we teach, I use all the time. Uh, One is as a service, looking at everything that you're offering as a product or even as a current service
Hmm.
and thinking about that. And then another mindset thing, and we do an exercise with this when we're training too, is called how can I make money with this? And so both of those things went into the development of strategies by subscription because really normally it's kind of a one at a time thing with clients. We'll have typically multiple strategies we'll develop for them over the course of time. But that's where that came from, was looking at it is, in what other ways might I be able to make money doing this,
Right.
right? And built into that, by the way, is the assumption that that serves and adds value to others. So that's my secret I'll share with you. That's where that
Love it.
came from.
I love it. I love it. They'll just have to tune in to catch the secret. I love it. Bob, this has been awesome. And I know, like I said, we could be on here talking about this stuff all day long if we both had the time. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing what else comes into your webinars. And I can't wait to see how well the subscription service works for you because I know people are going to love that.
Absolutely. Well, Nikki, it's been fun being your guest, and I have enjoyed this immensely.
Thank you so much. And I'll see you on LinkedIn.
Sounds good.
Talk to you later. Thanks for joining us on Scaling with Heart, where purpose fuels progress and people power possibility. If this episode brought you insight, inspiration, or a spark of strategy, share it with a fellow builder, leave a review, or spread the word. Until next time, keep showing up with clarity, courage, and compassion as you scale what matters most.